So, good evening, everybody. We continue tonight in the 44th chapter. We left off on page 126, pretty much in the center of the page, which is the Hanachas Ruach. So he speaks about the two underlying, if you will, Ahavos, love of a Yid to Hashem, as he says that it's kind of all encompassing in the relationship with a Yid with Hashem, of as he introduces these two Ahavos, these two expressions of love, the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can see the pretty much unique expression of the Alter Rebbe when he introduces these two, and he kind of makes it says, kind of establishes this is like an overall, perhaps underlying would be more the correct word, of the real type of love, expression of love in the relationship with the Yid with Hashem. The one which is Hashem is Chayenu, our life, our vitality, Nafshenu, our soul. As he elaborates over here, what does it mean, the soul to the human being, in this unique way of appreciating the soul, how much a person, a human being, appreciates the connection between soul and body. And then the other Ahava, which is how Hashem is Avinu Mamash Hamiti, our true Father, and so on. So this is again the theme of Perek Mem Daled, and you can see again the previous class, as well all the previous classes on this chapter, and for that matter from the very beginning of Tanya, as we always mention, for the newcomers, the Tanya online website, where you can see it, and it's easy as well to follow these classes, simply the way it's set up with a separate scroll bar for the text accordingly. So we continue being Vanachas Ruach hu kimoshel Simchas HaMelech Ibnei Shaboy Lov Mitzeisim Beis HaAsurim. As I mentioned, this is pretty much middle of page 126 towards the beginning of the line. You can see it in the corresponding English text as well. So he says that Nachas Ruach, the satisfaction, is like the joy of a king of his son, Shaboy Lov Mitzeisim Beis HaAsurim Kinis Kilel, that comes to him as he emerges, as he leaves incarceration, prison, and so on. Or to have Hashem to have a dwelling place in this very physical world. Like we mentioned before. In other words, if you notice in the previous chapters, when Alter Rebbe was speaking about a specific idea which he was conveying, he always put in the context of the Nachas Ruach of a child coming out of the Beis HaAsurim state of incarceration. And that's why he says, Kinizkel El, or the idea of Dir B'Tachtenim, which was Dir B'Tachtenim also, the Alter Rebbe says, Kinizkel El, like we mentioned before, earlier, which Alter Rebbe is overall never losing sight of the fact that a neshama is in the Beis HaAsurim in the end of the day. A neshama, as it enters into the body, by default, it's a certain sense of incarceration, because the neshama is a chelik of the kamimal, it's a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's a lukus, there's a freedom of a lukus, the infinitive expression of a lukus, because everything about it, on its core essential levels, is God, has Ein Sof elements, because it's a chelik of the kamimal. In contrast to where the neshama ended up, plummeted into the guf, in the body, in an elam hazeh, it is, you can't think of anything diametrically different in its experience. This is all about the finitude by its core definition, idea of hagbola, confinement, limitation, restrictions. It's nothing else than you can't express it for that matter better than a Beis HaAsurim. than a state of incarceration. Because the state of incarceration, here you have a free person appreciating his own freedom, his personal freedom, appreciating his family, his work, his life. Everything is, his life is basically without any restrictions. And I don't mean everybody's life is without any restrictions. There's always challenges and obstacles and so on. But generally, he's living, he's breathing his own, that's his own air, his own space, and his own, appreciating his own space, his own freedom, his own free spirit. The way it manifests in everyone naturally different, but in the overall it manifests almost very similar to every individual living in a free society. And then you take this person, within a few moments, you put him in a cell, confined with four walls, and say, be there. How long? We'll tell you how long. We will tell you how long you're going to be there. The tsar, the pain of the contrast and experience, is by definition indescribable. It cannot really be described. In essence, the neshama coming down into a body in Olam Hazeh is even far beyond that, because the neshama is a symbol of true emancipation, because the neshama is Ein Sof, has an Ein Sof element, because it's part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when that comes into a body, and the body is all about confinement, all about limitation, besides the fact that the body doesn't allow the neshama to freely express its neshamadikait, if you will, and its soulful spirit. Additional to that, the body has its own layers of bodily desires, cravings, and each one conceals, each one covers up, obscures the brightness of and purity of the neshama. So you can't describe a better description of true Beis Asurim, incarceration, more than the neshama coming down into a body. And that's why the Alter Rebbe, whenever he speaks about these different expressions, if it's love or any other direction that Alter Rebbe gives us in the previous chapters, he says, never lose sight that in the end of the day, that particular direction that I'm giving you, that I'm sharing with you, one way or another, it's emancipating you from this Beis Asurim. And when a child comes home to his father, the appreciation of the child embracing his father, again from a state of Beis Asurim, from a state of incarceration, and the appreciation of the child, how much more so the father, is extremely sensational, extremely unique, because this is a father and son. And when there is the separation of father and son, there's a great tsar, there's a underlying pain in the spirit of the father, and there's an underlying pain in the spirit of the son, that they're separated. And that's the point of Rahman al-Islam, incarceration. That individual, a family member, is separated. They know he's just right there behind those walls, but he cannot come together normally, to say the least, with his family, his friends, his society. So there's such an underlying pain between both parties, the father, the husband, the child, depending who is sitting, God forbid, in incarceration, and anything which is alleviates this restriction on both parties. There's the overall appreciation, the fact that they're coming together. Again, any way they express their relationship, these two parties express the relationship, there's the overall appreciation that there's somewhat of even immersion, the party emerging from from the state of incarceration, uniting with the other party. And this is, again, you'll see it throughout, whenever the Alter Rebbe again points out a particular direction in the relationship of Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, the nachas ruach, the great satisfaction of Hashem, and the chelik of the kamimal, his own child, and in this case, part of him, which is by default, the fact that it enters into a body is in a state of incarceration. So they're coming together. They're coming together. And again, the Alter Rebbe points this out over here. He speaks about two different types of avas, again in the previous classes in this very chapter. The love of nafshenu, or Yid appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu's nefesh, Yid appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu's avinu, ha'amiti, his true father. But nonetheless, the Alter Rebbe says, yes, when you're appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu as your true father, you're appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu as nafshenu, as our soul, our source of vitality, or the entire vitality is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore appreciating it. What's happening at that moment is as well that great satisfaction that I'm emerging from that state of incarceration one way or another and uniting with my loved one. And here also again, the Alter Rebbe emphasizes this, as we mentioned, as well the idea of Dira B'Tachteinim, that great satisfaction that HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of the day wanted a dwelling place and abode down here in this physical world. So even though there are the restrictions which exist again by default of the neshama coming down into the body, and a difficult restriction, if you will, to say the least. Nonetheless, when we express any type of expression, that closeness of the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in that state of the neshama beguf, the neshama invested in body, as opposed to the neshama divested from body, we should always remember that in the end of the day, where is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's great satisfaction, great time, great delight, is dafka b'tachteinim, is dafka in this physical world. With that itself is soothing and calming. And what's the point of dira b'tachteinim? Not that the neshama just could come down b'tachteinim, confined and challenged with the body and bodily needs, desires, inclinations, and then we have Olam Hazeh. The body is not sitting in Gan Eden. The body is an Olam Hazeh, physical world, which is again has different presentations and different delights and different sets of cravings and so on. That's not dira b'tachteinim, because that's tachteinim, but that's not the dira. That's the neshama found in this tachtein. But that's not dira b'tachteinim. Dira b'tachteinim, that the neshama down here in the state of tachteinim could recognize and never lose sight of its mission, and never lose sight of its ambition, objective, ambition, and goal. That is dira b'tachteinim. And again, many ways of executing that, expressing that. But the idea of not losing sight on the mandate, not losing sight of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in tachteinim, in this very physical world, that's true dira b'tachteinim, and that's where Hashem has his ultimate satisfaction. We say, emphasize ultimate satisfaction. As the Alter Rebbe elaborates in Perek Lamed Vav and Lamed Zayin, that this is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his entire delight is dafka the Yid doing his work over here, his avoid over here in Olam Hazeh, recognizing Elokus, identifying Elokus in this very domain, which is Olam Hazeh Tachten Shein Tachten Lamate Mena, this lowly physical world, which is again there's nothing lower in the evolvement and the evolving Seder Ishtalshalos. As we explained again, this term, as the Eir Eliki evolves and becomes minimized more and more till this very physical world is created. Much more than the Neshama in Gan Eden, much more than the Neshama in the highest levels of Gan Eden, much more than the entire Gan Eden. As Lashon Shnal Alter Rebbe, Hoyel v'lahem yerida meir panav yisbarach. They are distant kaviyachol from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As again, the whole explanation of the Alter Rebbe in the 36th and 37th chapter, that on the surface they seem closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but to the contrary, where the Eibishter's Hashem's true delight is precisely here, b'tachteinim. And therefore, we should not fall into this, so to say, this melancholy and say, whoa, I'm stuck. I gotta be here throughout, gotta navigate the system throughout till for the time Hashem put me into this world. But it's such a depressing situation, because it's a world which on its own does not demonstrate the Elokus. I have to come and introduce to the world the Eined Milvade, the notion of Eined Milvade. And then again, the restrictions of the body and the confinement of the body, the challenges of the body, and the body being in Ilam Hazel, as we mentioned. So when the Yid understands, just the opposite, Hashem has a dir b'tachteinim, Hashem has a dwelling, Hashem's greatest delight. In other words, my real closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the real time, the light of the Creator Himself, is dafka, precisely the neshama finding itself down here in this world, even in comparison to all the superior worlds, supreme and superior worlds. That itself, from a certain perspective and point of view, is calming and soothing. But again, Dira b'tachtenim doesn't mean that neshama just plummeted into the tachtenim. Okay, we have a Dira b'tachtenim, a dwelling place in this physical world. No, that's default. That's what Hashem established. Dira b'tachtenim means that I identify the godly reality in this very physical world, which that is what brings the delight of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Naturally, primarily through Torah, through mitzvahs, the recognition, the cognizant recognition of the Einid Mulvad, the dynamic in reality, of Hashem is everything, everything is Hashem. That's Dira b'tachtenim. And therefore, when the Alter Rebbe introduces these two avas, one would ask, what's the connection? The love of Hashem being nafshenu, or the other Hashem being Avinu Amiti, our true Father? What's the connection of Dira b'tachtenim? But the answer is, the Alter Rebbe says, always step back and don't lose sight, and realize that every expression of a relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the other expressions which I told you till now, and in this chapter, this expression of a Yid demonstrating his love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or evoking, arousing his love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is Hashem is nafshenu, that is a Dira b'tachtenim expression. That you're identifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're noticing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is your nefesh. You're noticing, as the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe is, he introduces the zayir that a person gets up in the middle of the night and will learn Torah till the morning because Hashem put Himself in the Torah, and I need Torah, I need to connect to my nefesh. All that, on the grander picture, is the Yid connecting to the ultimate goal and of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to his ultimate mandate of making Hashem a Dira b'tachtenim. Where's the connection, Dira b'tachtenim, and how do you connect it to what we said before? The Alter Rebbe says Dira b'tachtenim is the learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, and Perek Lamed Gimel is an example, was Kol Adam, appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu was here, but now he says it's a different idea. Now is this Dira b'tachtenim? He introduces two different avos which he didn't even mention before. The answer is, every recognition, every development of a Yid's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by definition, this is Dira b'tachtenim, that the Yid is found in this very physical world, and he identifies HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is one way or another, or establishing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this world, as an abode for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and a home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That I'm living in this world, I have my 2 feet on the ground, I'm in neshama b'guf. And in this neshama b'guf, I'm able to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, recognize that Hashem is Avinu Amiti, my true Father. Recognizing Hashem is nafshenu, feeling the energy and appreciating the energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Torah, and learning more and more Torah, and so on. That's very much Dira b'tachtenim. And so too, appreciating the entire, that's why it says Kinis Galel, like we mentioned before. And so too, this whole idea of Shaboy Love, that the unity of the individual who is incarceration, it's not just a particular expression to his loved one. It's a Yitziyah Mibeis HaSurim, because the Neshama is able to emancipate itself, if not totally, but emancipate himself. The fact that it connects, again, identifies, and sensationally identify HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we're dealing with an Ava. That's the overall satisfaction of the two beloved entities coming together, which is in this case HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his dear son, which is the Yid. So here, which tells us why the Alter Rebbe, in the middle of this, as he's speaking about these two avos, he says, "V'nachas ruach." You know what the satisfaction is? Like the joy of the king, of his son, which comes from his prison, from his state of incarceration. What's the connection? No, but the Alter Rebbe is telling us, Kinis Galel, like I mentioned before, that every expression in the Yid's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what I introduced to you earlier in the different ways, again, in the different chapters, previous chapters, Kiniska La'el, and again, and the message there that not to lose sight that this is, every expression is of the union and the unity of the two parties, the two beloved parties, as one of them leaves the state of the state of incarceration. So too over here, it's identical. The message is identical, even though Alter Rebbe never spoke about these two avos in the previous chapter. But don't lose sight, if you're able to, as a neshama big guf, neshama invested in body, identify HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the extent that you're able to extract a love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, in these two ways, this avo as Hashem to Hashem, which is nafshenu, and then Avinu Amiti Mamash, our true Father, that's somewhat a, at least miniature type of immersion of the two parties coming together, this party which stood in a state of Beis HaSurim, a state of imprisonment, and then the other idea of Dira B'Tachtenim. Yes, we are confined in the Tachtenim. That's where Hashem has His ultimate pleasure. And any way you identify with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, in this Tachtenim, that's a Dira B'Tachtenim. And in this case, it's a very, very unique expression of identification, identifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's the Dira B'Tachtenim. Kinis Galeh, like we mentioned before. The Rebbe goes on, he says, after Alter Rebbe explains us in the previous class, that even though a person doesn't find it, he has to accustom himself to this idea of Hashem being Avinu Amiti Mamamosh, Hashem being his true father. And Alter Rebbe says that Yargil Atzmi Kain, if you remember Hariyah Hergel Nasateva, this becomes your nature. And Alter Rebbe says that even if it seems illusionary, nonetheless, you should know that don't be concerned, because Be'emes Lamite, as we mentioned many times, Alter Rebbe, every idea, path, direction that Alter Rebbe establishes in Tanya is basically, he's saying you have it in your system, it's part of your hard drive. And that's why, again, which is a revolutionary mahalach in Alter Rebbe's Tanya, starting from even earlier, but namely in Perek Yud Ches, he says everything, all these enormous and deep and profound levels and expressions of a Yid's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is part and parcel of who you are. It's not that you have to bring it from the outside in, introduce it, but this is who you are. We gave the example the other day earlier, then, for that matter, I believe it was Perek Yud Ches. It's like you tell somebody that you have to arouse the idea that at a certain point after a few hours of the day, you will be hungry. You have maybe identify it, but you're not introducing an idea into your system. This is part and parcel of the system of the body, that after a few hours a person gets hungry. And so too all the other lusts and inclinations of the body. It's not something, maybe you tune into it, you know how to deal with it, but it's not something you got to introduce, because this is innate and inherent within the body. And this is again what Alter Rebbe's every level, and one would ask, and even in this chapter, Alter Rebbe says sometimes we can't even identify it. It seems like an illusionary expression, but Alter Rebbe in the whole entire Tanya, which introduces such deep, profound expressions of closeness of the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which many of them seem to be removed from reality. And again, Alter Rebbe even deals with it in this when he deals with this, the Yid's identifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Avinu Mamash Amiti, our true father. Alter Rebbe even again rhetorically asks this question: what if you believe it's an illusionary sensation? It's not real. But Alter Rebbe is saying that everything I introduced to you in this Tanya is really who you are. You don't have to bring it from the outside in. This is part of, in contemporary language, this is part of your hard drive. Go find it. Find it, meaning just like you have your hard drive. We're not even tuned what we have in our hard drive. We got to extract it, identify it, and then it worked for us. So we didn't need to introduce it. This is part of the system. So the Alter Rebbe speaks about it there when it comes to Avinu Amiti, that second love, which is the Ava, the love of a Yid identifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu as his father, as again the father figure. And he says also this, which we said in the very beginning, the Nafshi V'Sicha, this idea of a Yid identifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu as his nefesh is also Korav Adavar Ma'id. It's also very close, like Tzion Mehelim Elagilui, to extract it from a state of concealment, a state of potential, a state of concealment rather, to a state of revelation, that it should be manifest in his system, in his psyche and in his experience. Constantly accustom yourself in your mouth and your heart, appreciating the Hashem as nafshenu, as our soul. And again, as Alter Rebbe so eloquently explained, what does soul mean to the human being? Not necessarily even to the Jew. What does soul mean to the human being? When a person goes to sleep, he always desires that I want my soul, I want to be the perfect flow of the energy of my soul into my body. So I should be healthy and I should be able to function. And all my faculties should be in perfect shape, in perfect condition. And I'll be able to think well and hear well and see well and speak well. And so in other words, have the ability to express, that every faculty should be able to express itself in its maximum, with its maximum performance, because there's the soul energy which is perfect, perfectly entering with perfect symmetry into every one of my limbs, organs, faculties, and so on. That's how much I appreciate my soul. Now, when a person goes to sleep, he aspires, and he gets up he'll get up the next morning healthy. When a person's weak, God forbid, or he's not feeling well, his inner aspiration is that I want the connection of soul and body. Again, you can see it towards the beginning of the chapter, probably the second class, I believe, in this very chapter. And as you can see it online, and then and the same thing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, appreciating that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nafshenu, it's your life force, it's your vitality in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, the Alter Rebbe, as we just mentioned before, puts it in the context of a Yid utilizing the opportunity of learning more and more Torah, because he knows Hashem, this nefesh is in Torah. Hashem is nafshenu. Hashem is our soul. Rebbe puts it again and brings the Zayar, which is simply the more opportune time you get to learn Torah, because by day he has the obligation to work and to deal with world reality, personal or whatever, each one into his own. By night is a time, like the Gemara says, night was created to learn Torah. So that the Zayar says a person gets up every night to learn Torah till the morning. But why not only just doing it because that's what he's meant to do, but appreciating that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is our soul. And body aspires to soul and appreciates soul. In this context, not necessarily the nefesh is the godly soul, simply the energy, the vitality, which vitalizes and energizes the body. So too the Yid appreciates HaKadosh Baruch Hu because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nafshenu. What's the connection to Torah? Because the Gemara, we brought in the Gemara, and again, the message here is that Eivish to put his soul into Torah. Hashem put his soul, my core soul, I put into Torah, and I gave it over to you. I gave it into Torah. So I'm learning Torah to connect to my soul. So even though on the surface it might be foreign to the Yid, but not foreign to the Yid because the concept is foreign to the Yid. No, from the perspective of the neshama, it is so real. It's more than real, because the neshama is a chelik al-kamimal. It's a part of a Kodesh Baruch. The problem is the neshama invested into a body and enters into the body and into a nefesh bahamis, into an animal soul, as the lashon is it's mislabish. And invests in animal soul into a body, and this body is an il mazeh. So therefore, to identify even something apparently so elemental, unappreciating a Kodesh Baruch Hu's nafshenu, is also something that one has to work in extracting mehelim elagili from a concealed state to a revealed state, that it should be manifest in a system. But the Alter Rebbe says, I'm encouraged. Accustom yourself constantly with your mouth and your heart. Pivali b'shavan, again, the symmetry between heart and mouth, meaning that what is on your heart should be on your tongue. Identifying this love, this type of amo, appreciating that Hashem is nafshenu, and I'm not worried. Because from the perspective of the neshama, It's all there. The neshama, it appreciates it on its own. It's innate within the neshama. It's inherent within the neshama. The only thing is the neshama entered into a box, let's call it, which is the nefesh bahami, is the animal soul, the body, and the body finds itself elamasa, and now you have to go try to extract it. But work on it. Accustom yourself to it. It's there because from the perspective of the neshama, it's right there. The neshama knows, it appreciates on its own very well. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nafshenu. And so that same message which Al Rebbe gives you before when it comes to the neshama appreciating Avinu, that Hashem is Avinu Amiti Mamash, it's the same message that Al Rebbe is saying over here. Accustom yourself. Because again, from the perspective of the neshama, it's all there. And fully. So the Alter Rebbe again says, "Zachem yen yochel loitzi ala gili b'libay, afa b'kin yochel asik b'teira mitzvos lishmon, ad yitzir in yinavezu b'machshava sheb'meichi, b'machshava teva HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa." Here the Alter Rebbe again, if you remember, this is where we left off in the last class, again introduces this idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa, which is repeating this which he introduced in the 16th chapter of Tanya, which you can look there and you can find it also even on the very website, to appreciate this message and this very unique diuk of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe points out that many times it says in the Torah that when one pursues an idea to implement it and he doesn't reach his goal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu considers if he did it. And then there's something which on the surface seems very similar, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa l'maisa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu connects it to action, and which seem the message to me to be very similar. The Alter Rebbe says, hey, look at these words. You say malala l'kasav kilasa, which means you didn't do it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is considers it as if you did it. But when you say HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa l'maisa, there's a machshava toiva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa l'maisa, when you translate literally, there is a machshava, and there is a maisa, but there's missing the link, there's missing the connection, there's missing the bridge. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa l'maisa, so it's not you thought of doing something and you didn't do it. In this case, you did do it, and you're constantly doing it. And there is the machshava. There's missing a particular link. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa, he puts the chain together. Now what's that supposed to be? If I'm doing it, what's the problem? Why do I need HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be mitzarfa? Lemaisa, if there is maisa. And there the Alter Rebbe goes on and goes into a whole explanation, appreciating how heart contributes to the relationship of a Yid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like heart contributes to any relationship. It's not enough when cognitively I appreciate a certain matter and I follow suit in action or in speech. It's important that there's passion, it's important there's heart, but not always a person is able to ignite his heart. Conversely, especially when it comes to relationship, how the matter being essential rather is even more when it comes to the relationship with the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Alter Rebbe explains again the essentiality of heart, where we can appreciate the essentiality of heart when it comes to the relationship of two human beings. And the Alter Rebbe again uses that, explaining how essential it is, our heart relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the passion experience, but not there he explains not necessarily the passion is ignited, or adequately ignited, so you're intellectually you appreciate it, cognitively you appreciate it. Maisa, certainly you're following with action because you appreciate the matter of Avodas Hashem, as he explains in Pedic Design. So you're doing everything right, and you're learning Torah, and you're scrupulously keeping Hashem's mitzvahs. Maybe be this what Hashem says not to do, and Hashem says to do, and so on. But there's missing the passion. So you have machshava teva, you have the maisa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes the link, and again, for the reasons what we gain, because there the Alter Rebbe explains that a mitzvah which is done with passion is elevated higher and yet higher within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As we explained last week as well, in the last class we explained this, when we say higher, it means say it's simply closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like the relationship of two people. When we say something was done with a bit more passion, or with more passion, it touches deeper into the relationship of both parties. Or if it's a gift, it touches deeper into the recipient's heart. So it's not only the action, like we mentioned, the watch, which was, we gave an example as a gift, when it's given with passion and excitement and sensation, it's not only the watch, you see the individual who looks at the time, the recipient of this gift, always sees the party who gave them the watch, re-experiences that moment of that transition or that transmission of the watch to the receiving the experience of receiving that watch. And receiving and seeing and experiencing the entire sensation of that experience. And that's why it's important our passion in our Beis Hashem simply be reached deeper within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The idea with Alter Rebbe speaks about a higher world means deeper and yet deeper within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if you don't have the passion, for whatever reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He puts it together because you're on the right path. The passion will probably come in one way or another. And if it doesn't come that frequent, periodically, the passion will be ignited. But in the times it's not, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Metzarfa. You have the machshava, you have the ma'isa, but you're missing that link, the connection again, the heart connection. So the Alter Rebbe, and this with Hashem, puts it together. And the Alter Rebbe says over here, even if you did not have the ability to emerge this in this feeling, or rather to arouse it in a way that it becomes manifest in your heart, which means you're passionate about the fact that Hashem is nafshenu, Hashem is our soul, our vitality. Nonetheless, you can one continues occupying himself in Torah and in mitzvahs, lishmon, for the sake of Hashem, with the image of this love in your mind. In other words, intellectually appreciating it, cognitively appreciating it. You're missing the link of the constant passion. No worries. Machshava teva, Kodesh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa. That good machshava together with the Maisa, Hashem will place the link together as if you did it with passion. And again, the result is that deeper connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu accordingly. Have a good night.